All right, starting. All right, here we go. All right, welcome everybody. This is the virtual brown bag. Let's get things rolling. We're already chatting about good stuff, and we're not recording. It's like, and that's good stuff to share, regardless. Now, if my mouse can only come back and let me roll through the intro thing here. I'm not even sharing my screen.
Nope, you're sharing your face.
Ah. My unshaved face.
Yeah. How do you wear a mask, man? You got to get that fit.
That's right. Yeah. And get my mask here.
Yeah. I've been 3D printing masks like since February. So no,
Oh,
March. But
3D
yeah.
printing? That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. There's a
The
couple.
first I
Yeah, if
heard.
anyone else is into it, I mean, chat. I've got some good designs that I feel like have worked really well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, hold on to that thought. I'm gonna ask you about that. Uh, all right, my slides apparently are stuck here. Anyways, this is the virtual brown bag. We record the things that we share here. So since we encourage people to be sharing stuff, we also tell people, hey, do not share anything that could, cause you any kind of trouble and that would cause us work to then later edit the video before we post. We like to just, hitting the post button and, go to town. What we do here is we get together, we share tips, tricks, experiences, frustrations. If you've been alive, sometimes people say, oh, I have nothing to share. Well, are you alive still? Right? If you've been getting off bed, or even if you have not been getting off bed, maybe you were reading a book or whatever, there's something that you could share. Now, if you're already dead and you're listening to this, you have something to share. You have to tell us how you're doing that, right? Um, so we're game for really a number of topics. We do this every Thursday, 12 to 1 Central Time here on Skype, at least for now. Everybody's welcome to, join us and share stuff or listen in, however, works best for you. We have been all over the place. We share things, mostly for software developers, but we're really all over the map. We talk about, things that go way beyond just writing code, right? So, and here's a partial list of topics we've covered in the past. And we have the virtualbrownbag.com website where you can always find a link to the meeting as well as links to the videos for the previous meetings, and a link to our Slack channel if you want to just go deeper into discussions or continue discussions or propose topics. That's a good way to let us know about. And other than that, let's get this thing rolling. I have one thing to start sharing just as I heard of it, confirmation this morning. Houston Tech Fest is going to be happening this year, except that it's not going to be in presence for obvious reasons, but it's being posted. It's going to be virtual. Improving will actually be helping with the conference organizers because since we've done our agile shift as a virtual conference, we've figured out how to better do it and how to figure out the balance of producers and speakers and how to make the whole infrastructure work. So we offered a hand, and so we're going to be pairing up to be able to make it happen. So it's happening on September 12th, I think. You can go in and sign up on their Eventbrite so that they can get a head count of how many people are interested in knowing about it. And they're working on the agenda. I know that I'm going to be giving a couple of talks there. Some of our friends will be giving talks there as well. So it will be an all-day conference, I think over 30 plus sessions. So, if you're not doing anything on that Saturday, it's going to be a Saturday, just pick on your sessions and check it out.
Can you
Yeah.
post that to the ConfNerds CFB channel?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
sure thing.
We'll get a ton of people volunteering that way. Hope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
I don't have my Slack on this computer, but I'm taking note of that and I'll post it when we're done with
yeah,
the.
yeah. Yeah. I got to start signing up for a lot of the online events.
Right. Yeah, it's, since we are going to be getting more and more of those, and, you know, it's good to stay strong. And I've been talking to people about like figuring out user groups that used to be just in person that are now migrating to virtual. That opens up possibilities to start like cross sharing content and speakers, because if it's like, oh yeah, there is the QA user group in Houston that invited me to give a talk on like TDD, for example. Well, we also have QA groups in Dallas, in other cities. Maybe we can just pair and have just one meeting and promote with those user groups. It may be on different, you know, days of the month that they normally get together, but heck, it's free content, right? Just let people know that the content is available. So
Yeah, one of the things like there's been a lot of discussion in the speaker community about what conferences are going to do and how that works. Like I've said before, like I'm actually kind of okay with the large conferences which cost like hundreds of dollars to go to just kind of going away, and all conferences being kind of smaller. I say regional, but really I mean community based ones where like where it forms around and to reinforce a certain community, not
right.
like is not particularly for profit. Like I think that if that was a majority of conferences, we would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, because I mean, as far as content, whether you're sitting there in class, in the room or watching it through your computer, it doesn't matter. I mean, for me, the biggest thing about going out to conferences is the networking part of it, right? It's those conversations that you have as you're moving from room to room and the breaks and, getting to meet people and have conversations. That's the main thing. But as far as the content, I just need to see it and listen to it. So yeah, so that's good stuff. Yeah, so George, tell me about the
Oh,
3D printed masks. I didn't
mask.
even think of that before.
Oh yeah. So like I got serious about coronavirus like maybe about a week before New Orleans did, because I read that Hammer and the Anvil article, and which was I think probably about like 2 or 3 weeks before most of the United States did. And like so I
Right.
like right away like started my kind of mode with this stuff was like, all right, what can I do? And just kind of thinking around that, I was like, oh, I have a 3D printer, I know people with 3D printers, so I started looking around on that and actually ended up getting involved in several communities around tracking coronavirus, helping stuff. And I was like, I don't have time, but I will recommend people to y'all and get people in here about that. So like one group is the helpful engineering group, another is the end coronavirus group. So we did a lot of work around like designing face shields and face shield holders and stuff that you could give to hospitals, because everyone knew hospitals run out. And that fortunately has not been as much of an issue, but also since the beginning, I was looking at different models of 3D printed masks. So let's see, one of the most popular ones going around, it's this, which is like really fast to print, like it was like 2 hours on my printer, which sounds like a long time, but it's actually not very long for it. It has a little thing you can unscrew, pop in a filter. It ends up looking like this when you put it together. They're kind of crappy. Yeah, that's the second one you see right there, the nano hack mask. They're kind of crappy, honestly. Hard to breathe with through. The one I ended up settling on, it's called the Montana mask. It ends up looking like this. So the pattern, you don't have to worry about the pattern. I just did that with my printer pen.
Okay.
But there's a couple of things that like they don't tell you like when you get it. Um, First of all, how you get a seal with the face, like because it is contoured. It's very well contoured. They did it by like actually mapping. This is like this dentist out of Billings came up with this. That's why it's called the Montana mask. And like he worked with a shop there to like contour the human face and come up with this. And it doesn't work for everyone. It does work well for me. So how do you actually get it to seal? Because that's important. The goal here is to maybe we don't get to N95 mask level, but it's good enough that I feel confident wearing this walking around like grocery stores and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, so what you do is you go get some weather stripping from the hardware store. So this is just, let's see if I have any. Yeah, this stuff right here You know, you put that on, it's sticky. You put that under there. I go through with like little manicure scissors and just cut it open like that, and just take it and with a hot glue gun around the edge, just fit it on there. It fits really, really well. Actually, it sticks really, really well. And then the other part they don't tell you is, I mean, you still need a filter because when you get it, it just comes like this. There's just two parts. You slip that in. So I did a good amount of research on this, and there's a couple. There's different things. Generally, you want some hydrophobic material in a couple layers, and some layers of really fibrous one that will capture moisture well. So here's kind of what I do, and there's a couple different techniques. So one of them, where do I have it? One second, I have it somewhere here. Yeah, this material right here, it's called NWPP. You probably non-woven polypropylene. You probably like seen in like reusable shopping bags and stuff like that. If you look at it, it's the stuff that looks woven, but if you look really close, isn't. It just stamped into place. So that makes a really good one layer. Like the cheap surgical masks, that's another really good layer. So I just cut a little square out of that. And then a really good layer to that to add, this stuff. The blue brawny paper towels, super duper absorbent. I've actually seen several studies that test them, and basically take two squares of them, cut these two squares, lets you save on masks if you are using masks. Put it together, pop it in there, and just pop it in here. It gets a pretty good fit. Like, let me see if I can get a fit right here. I'll show you how it works. So I've been going around with this. This is like my, okay, I'm going to be indoors somewhere that I do not know mask.
Right.
And I've been going around, and it's in March. So you'll see right now, I'm going to put this on, and I'll start breathing through it, and you can like see it puffing in and out, meaning that air is actually getting trapped in there. It's not going out the sides. So hold on.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So that's been kind of like my high security mask. I've kind of been printing them on and giving out to my friends and stuff. But yeah, it's good stuff. If you want to look it up, if you have a 3D printer yourself, it's called the Montana mask.
Yeah, I don't, but I have a lot of friends who are always looking into like new things to make with their printers.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they haven't heard it, but of this. But
Right.
I mean, a lot of people kind of got into it and were like, there's so many recommendations. I don't know which one to go with, and some of these are really hard to print, and some of these are stupid. And I think people gave up. But like, yeah, this one, yeah, like I experimented with it a lot. Like, you know, so many of these. Yeah, like I tried TPU, but like honestly, just the cheap PLA material, which is the cheapest one to make, has worked out the best for me. Another thing that I actually did, I don't use it as much as I should, is I got a UVC light, which like is supposed to be sanitizing for, and I don't actually like use it to light up a room. I don't fully trust that. It smells the entire place up with ozone. But what I did do is I got a big box, lined the inside of it with aluminum foil, stick the light in there, and put little hooks in there. So I just hook stuff up inside of there, close the box, turn it on for like 15 minutes. It nukes everything with like more UV light than anything organic can handle. And, you know, without getting it hot or anything like that, or too hot.
Okay.
So those have been my like two coronavirus hacks that I went.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing is having a 3D printer. So many little train pieces for my son.
Ah, that makes sense.
Brio tracks of all sorts.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, we do have an improver who started a 3D printing user group sometime last year.
They're way more serious about it than me then. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that dude, holy cow. Yes, he is an inventor. He makes like some impressive stuff with everything, not just 3D printing, a bunch of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he started at last year, and now of course, that's put on hold because I don't think that's the kind of. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I was gonna say I don't know how well that would translate to like a virtual set, but we do have another improver in Dallas who actually has like a YouTube channel, and what's the other platform that people use for that, and he's always like making
Twitch.
stuff. Twitch,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you. And he has like a channel that every week he just gets on there and shows people how he's like building robots and IoT stuff and 3D printed stuff, and it's like little projects. He doesn't know exactly where he's going with the projects,
Mm-hmm.
but he's sharing with people, okay, here's how I'm failing at it, these are the lessons I'm learning as I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Oh, there's so much cool stuff with it. Like, I wish I had like I had the time for it. I got like a nicer nozzle for my 3D printer, and I was like thought I could install in like 45 minutes. And I like started getting into it. I was like, no, this is gonna take like a full day, and also like I'm gonna need I'm gonna need to 3D print stuff in order to fit this in there. And yeah, like it unfortunately kind of got too much time for me. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much stuff that I want to be able to do with it, and just has to go in the back burner because it's just it gets its own time. I mean, honestly, knowing how to 3D design these things, um, like it gets really interesting. The people that are so impressive, and I've like tried to. I learned. I spent some time when I had a little time. My kids were like still like babies. I spent time like doing FreeCAD and learning that, and which is actually really interesting software for a lot of reasons because like every part of it is scriptable, including like as you're working through the UI, there's a little window that's showing the scripting equivalent of everything you're doing. Like it's kind of that mode where it's like everything you do just calls a script.
Right.
Um, but the freaking thing is so buggy. I just eventually dropped it. Um, but there, like, if anyone wants to get rid of it, what I would recommend is there is a website called Tinkercad. So it is probably the most impressive like website which gets actual serious use and it's not a toy that I've seen because you can do full on 3D modeling within the website, including like sharing stuff, and like you get some aspects of source control with it, and you can share little like things and start and like basically fork someone else's 3D model and then download it a bunch of ways, and or you can like just send the model off to a local 3D printing shop to have it printed for you. And it's really cool, but they have some ways of working on it with it which is pretty simple. Like you don't have to like learn all the stuff like, oh, I'm going to rotate this around an edge and have it change and so on, where you're basically you're just using basic shapes and combining them and saying I'm going to combine this shape and this shape into one shape, then I'm going to combine this shape into there, but this shape will be a hole in that one, and you can get surprisingly far just by doing that alone. um,
Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, it is very cool. The one
Awesome.
other thing that I liked about FreeCAD, I'll mention this, and because this actually relates to development and software design in general. Um, it was the way that you worked with a model, like as you were working on it. Like I said, it was scripts, but
Mhm.
your model it was an event streaming system. So the model itself was basically the series of the scripts that you ran in order to get to that point. Um, which makes undos really interesting because you can be like, I want to undo, but not I don't want to undo like the last 3 minutes. I just want to undo this one step that I did somewhere in the middle, and like all the other things are still built on top of it, and what comes out then. And that for systems like that becomes really cool to interact with. Like you could even basically fork things implicitly in your event stream, kind of jump back and forth and try stuff out. Um,
Okay.
and I wish more software was designed like that. I know that GIMP, the image editor, was trying to design itself like that to do that, but GIMP, the image editor, is also probably like the most broken of all like project management things of all open source software. Like they have trouble fixing like they couldn't put out like a Windows version of it for like a really long time. So and all they needed, and they were like, it doesn't take any work. It just takes someone with a Windows computer to can run the script, and they couldn't do that for like 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah. So I don't have high hopes that this thing that we're trying to do 5 years ago ever gets done. But it would be very, very cool for these systems where you're building up a thing through a series of steps. It just feels so powerful, like in that Kathy Sierra badass sense.
right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Hey, switching gears. Tony, would you mind if we brought up your most recent blog post? Because I thought that's like very VBB worth type of discussion.
If he doesn't.
Hello, hello. Oh, Tony, if you're talking, you're breaking up pretty bad for me.
Any better?
Little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Sounding a little robotic.
Hurricane audio.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. How about now? Did we lose Tony?
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of grab the top line subject, and maybe if he can rejoin? We can let him
Sure. Yeah, I can bring up his blog post. Okay, right here. Just open it up and then share.
Okay.
Oh, you there?
Back now?
Yeah, I've got to drop here in a few minutes, but
Okay.
yeah, you can use the blog post.
All right.
If you want.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a good topic to bring up, and since you're documenting, posting it, I like that. I really like having those conversations and documenting like that, so that other people can benefit from it. So I guess just let's give folks some context here. So yesterday or the day before, you posted like some nasty looking file and asked people's opinion about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there was this one file here with like 40,000 lines of code, and then of course there are regions. No files like that we go without regions. That's like the bane of my existence. And then I think today, Tony,
it's better than not having regions.
But it helps you organize your thoughts. So
yeah.
No, dude. Yeah, no. Just there's no reason to use regions. Period. I'm gonna fight to death on that point.
Even if you have a 40,000 line file.
I should not have a 40,000 line file. That that's the
Well,
thing.
I should have $1 million, but
no, that's
it's actually worse than that, because that's part of a partial class, and I was only looking at one part of it. There's another 20,000 lines of code in there.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually do have those. I've written one of those lately where it was like a partial file across a bunch of stuff, but I will defend why that was, in that specific context, it was a good idea.
okay.
But let's talk about yours.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't have a problem if it's generated code. It's something that you can, you don't have to, maintain quite so.
Yeah.
So closely, but if you have over 40,000 lines of code that's grown organically, then that is, and the cyclomatic complexity is ridiculous through there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know where you would start if you wanted to cover the entire thing with unit tests. The class coupling is ridiculous as well. There's just so many dependencies, and I can't imagine that you have, most of classes is using all the dependencies, but all the dependencies are theirs. It just kind of threw everything into one class. So it's kind of like a god class, I guess.
Right. Well, and just to give put things into context, because I came to realize years ago that a lot of developers are not familiar with what cyclomatic complexity is. My way of explaining it is that's the number of unit tests you would have to write to get that class covered, right? That's the way that I learn. It's like, okay, that makes sense to me. If I have 9,500, as the cyclomatic complexity, that's the number of tests I need to write just for that one class. That smells really bad.
And in just practical terms, it's the number of logical paths
right.
through stuff. Where like if this, then that. So if you have an if, that's a score of 2. If right. there's an if and an else.
Right, and then like to Tony's point, if it was like code generated, like back in WinForms, for example, where you would drop buttons on a form, it would create code instantiating those controls and putting those into the form. You could end up with like 300 lines of code, but cyclomatic complexity would still be 1 because it's one pass through all of those lines. Mm-hmm. But when you have, like George said, all of those like conditionals, then it gets out of whack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a very good example of code that's being out of whack.
Yeah, like the biggest one, and like I mentioned on LinkedIn, like the biggest one here, you got it at 284. I remember, and I gotta have that somewhere. When I first did a talk on like clean code and things like that, that was back in 2008. I used to use this screenshot because back then I was using the CodeRush tool that had a code metric chart that would show. So as I was navigating code in Visual Studio, that little thing on the side, it would show me cyclomatic complexity. So whenever I saw something like going into the yellowish area, it's like, okay, I know what I'm, getting into right now. When I saw it red, and then the ugliest I saw at the time, it was like at about 350 cyclomatic complexity for one method. And that method was an action in the code behind of a web form project. And I remember the customer asked me to go in to see, because they said, oh, we have this page here that's taking forever to load. We keep throwing servers at it and increasing memory and this and that and the other. And I said, okay, all right, show me the code. As soon as I opened that file and it shows cyclomatic complexity, I said, you can keep throwing as many servers at it as you want, right? But if you have this kind of code running in the code behind of a web form, right? You're looking at the wrong thing there. That was the nastiest I've seen.
Yeah, I'm almost more troubled by the class coupling bit.
Oh, like, that's
cyclomatic complexity. I mean, because what this says to me, I'm assuming there wasn't a lot of other classes in this application. So, like, in which case, this is just all right. Someone that either doesn't know how or was not interested in writing object-oriented code, which all right, it happens. It's just all in one file. That's weird, but we're in an IDE. I'm not that bothered by lack of files. You can still jump around just fine. But class coupling, is telling you that there's a whole when you have 77, a class coupling of 77, sure, a good chunk of them are probably like from .NET Framework classes, but also like a good amount of them probably aren't, and you would have to understand those classes in order to like know what the heck this is doing.
Yeah.
And like so I almost would take the 284 cyclomatic complexity with 27 class coupling as opposed to the first one
over the other one.
Yeah. Even though this one's longer, I was like, oh, the other one scares me more. Unless it's just like an IOC configuration thing, but we know it's not because IOC configuration does not have that cyclomatic complexity.
Exactly. That's where it's cool. Like I remember Independ, that tool could actually, you could make it so that it's like, okay, disregard .NET Framework classes, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could like fine tune a little bit more to see what you're actually up against.
Mm-hmm.
But still, that's scary. And on the partials, there's one case I remember vividly back in 2007, I think. So we hired this guy, right? That's the guy nailed the interview. It's like he talked, apparently with a lot of authority on, object design and design patterns and things like that. It seemed that he was not just regurgitating what he read on the book. It seemed like he actually knew what he was talking about, right? And then first user story that he's working on, it's taken a while for him to like push his changes, and of course he pushes it when like on a Friday, and then he's off for the next week. And it was at a time when we were using Visual Source Safe, which meant that it put a real lock on files, and nobody else could make changes to that Visual Studio project because the CS project file was locked by him, and nobody else could do anything else on the project until he committed that. So that was like the first what. And then when we pull his changes, we see that there's like 80 files created. Like, oh, this guy has been busy. 80 files? Okay. Those 80 files were 40 classes that he created. And then for each class, he created the main side of the class and the partial one if we wanted to extend the class. Like, wait, what? And all of the classes were empty because he was trying to like implement some sort of strategy. So he said, okay, I have this one strategy and we're going to have 40 different implementations of that strategy. So I'm going to create one class for each and one partial for each class. So he created just a placeholder for those classes and he pushed it into source control. I'm like, why the hell did you do that? So yeah, it's like out. Sorry, but that was pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, thanks for sharing that, Tanya. I thought that was a good one because not a lot of people pay attention to those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
Very cool. All right.
um,
What else?
um, I got something I could talk about, I suppose.
Sure.
Okay. So, let me share this. I think it's fine if I share this. No one's gonna mind. I've been kind of soliciting opinions on it anyway.
Okay.
So, um, I I've been teaching a little in our boot camp that we do. And today was the unit on software architecture. I didn't have time to, and I took a look at the slides and I was like, oh boy, no. This needs to get reworked. I didn't have time to rework it today. But I mean, I also didn't know exactly what I want to rework it to. So I started by kind of writing, at least trying to write down like all the stuff about architecture that I would want to teach someone if I have time. So I got an outline, which I think is getting pretty close to done. Let's go through it, and you tell me if I need to add anything else to it.
All right.
I have no idea how I'm going to condense this down to something that's actually teachable in a short period of time, but we'll do that.
Okay.
All right, here's my outline of way too much stuff. So first of all, I would start this by like kind of, and this is still from the point of view of, I should probably make this into a regular bullet point rather than a heading. But I want to start this kind of from, talking with like boot campers and stuff like that. So one of the things would be like to talk them through parts of the application so they get a sense for the great expanse of things going upwards as a systems design that they don't know. I want to go through guidance, right? So you've got Yagni, dry, encapsulation, low coupling, high cohesion, and solid, which is going to be its own thing. I think that's pretty good about general kind of rule of thumb guidance. I don't know if there's any other big ones like KISS, but that's not anything direct, so I'm okay with kind of skipping that.
Should you consider like a high-level overview of design patterns? Just
Well,
add that there
that's
as
next
something
one.
that goes along with those. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yep.
not even looking down.
Right. So this is just more like the rule of thumb style guidance.
Yes.
Okay, so next is what are design patterns? Okay.
Okay.
So emphasize it's all about communicating with others, which like we've talked about before. Kind of going through the game form patterns. So like what ones that I would want to talk about: adapter, decorator, abstract factory. You know what? I'll throw chain of responsibility in there.
Sure.
Abstract factory, actually probably abstract factory first because it's an easier one. Okay, sorry, operator. Okay, cool.
So,
Then
okay, can I add something there?
Sure.
What about you just do factory and then abstract factory? Because I've noticed in the past, people had a hard time understanding abstract factories. It wasn't until like, okay, here's factory, here are strategies. Okay, now let's talk about abstract factories because you're really like replacing a collection, like a group of objects altogether.
Yeah,
I know that I've had.
seems like such a dumb thing to even talk about, but all right.
Oh,
Yeah.
which one you think?
Factory.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's like, oh, here's a function that returns a thing. It's like, yeah, every function. Like, okay.
Well,
I mean, I get that that's like, okay, you're using it for construction. But I feel like I don't have a lot to say about it even. Like,
so
Yeah.
where I got I think where I got people to at least like .NET C# folks to better understand factories is like, okay, you have this variable here that you're saying variable whatever equals new something.
right.
And then I would ask the person, would you ever have a situation where that thing that you're newing up could vary, like a different implementation, or you want to replace that in testing scenarios? If the answer is yes, well, maybe we should consider using a factory.
But that would be an
Right.
abstract factory, because the abstract factory is the one which can return different implementations based on criteria.
Well, no, that's not my understanding of abstract factory. My understanding of abstract factory is that you replace not just, you don't provide just an instance of one type of object, but a collection of objects. So for example, if you have a data access layer that is abstract, and then you may have implementations for, I don't know, going against SQL Server, Oracle, other databases. So you may have one implementation for